a Ranger sit down number one. And I feel like this is appropriate to have Joe on today just because it was his first year at Crown at the helm of things and a Ranger sit down number one. We've had him on once before, but, I'm been looking forward to this one more than a lot of the ones we're going to do. I look forward to all of them, obviously, but, we were just big fans of what they did there at Crown in their first year and the progression throughout the whole season and everything. So I've just been looking forward to this one for a while.
Yeah, we want to thank you for taking the time to come on with us. Obviously, I'm very nostalgic for Carolina Crown, and I want the Corps to be successful just as an alumni. So, yeah, I was pretty thrilled to see the names of a lot of groups, especially this one, just to see people getting a shot. A lot of Rangers that maybe – I think it's kind of a passing of the torch where, not everyone can do this forever. So some of the people who've been doing it for decades and decades are kind of like, turn over a new leaf and we get fresh things. And I feel like you guys did a lot of fresh things, which we'll talk about. But yeah, obviously thanks for joining us from Texas, even though you're a Kentucky boy at heart.
Yeah, we were talking about UK.
No, thanks for having me. And obviously I can see the Crown bass drum head in the background, excited to be here, and we had a blast at Crown and can't wait to talk about it.
Yep. I got my plumes back there too. They kind of can't see them,
dude,
but
I'm always jealous. Plumes. You have so much stuff from your years at Crown. I think I know where my Blue Stars necklace is, and I know where my pennies are for my summer at Bluecoats, but I think I stared.
That was when we had real uniforms and not real uniforms, but old school uniforms. I'm just kidding. I like the new stuff. It's makes much more sense from a breathing standpoint. But they had the inserts, so we got that. We got to keep the chains from the helmet. We got to keep the little patch thing, the Crown mirror that Velcroed on. So we got to keep a bunch of stuff, which is cool.
Well, before we jump into podcast mode and then watching Crown's Percussion Ensemble here, welcome everyone to the Aged Out Podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Michael Fantini, and with me as always is
Evan Worrell.
And comment, like, subscribe, share the video. If you're on podcast services, go check out all the other content reaction videos we have over there. And vice versa, if you want to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're all over those platforms as well. All the links to support us in whatever way you want to are in the description. And the link to the original video we're going to be watching here, RBase 311, Robert Martinez, makes some of the best stuff on the internet. Go subscribe and support. What just happened, Evan?
No, it just happened. That's never happened before.
Discord's doing real weird things, everybody. That was really weird. All right, even Discord knows this is going to be a good one. All right, Evan, take it, and we'll just see where it goes.
Yeah, so kind of take us from the beginning, just getting the call or the email, the pitch was made, the offer was extended, kind of like what was going through your mind, or, go.
No, it was exciting and terrifying all at the same time, you know what I mean? Ton of respect for Crown and the organization and the people that have been there before me. Whether it was Mike or Lee Bettis or all those guys of Paul Rennick, that lineage of percussion at Crown. All the feelings. Made a lot of phone calls, called people that I trusted. I remember I called Casella, that's a guy that I always call and talk to and said, hey, man, what are your thoughts on this? You've done this. And just tried to talk to people about it. And also talking to my wife, was a big thing. And, we may or may not talk about this, but I took a step back from my full-time job at Vandegrift. I've been there 9 years, and I knew if I took the Crown thing, I would have to kind of give that up to do the Crown thing. Mm-hmm. I've got a young daughter, and it's just I wanted to do the Crown thing full, all the way in. You know what I mean? I wanted to be there on the road. I wanted to write it, and I knew how much time that was going to take. So it was a huge life decision, honestly, and I would say it was a gamble, but it was nerve-wracking because it's just a different gig and it's a different role. And again, that brass team is fantastic. The guard team's fantastic. They had a lot of great things going. So just trying to step into that and fulfill that part of the percussion was intimidating, just being honest, but definitely exciting and really, I'd known Joe Roach for a long time. There's some comfort there too. Mm-hmm. I talked with Joe Roach, who's the CEO at Cavaliers, I think starting in 2014. And he was the core director at Cavaliers when I was there as well. And I think my last year there was 18. So I knew Joe. Cliff Walker actually taught me at Southwind in 01, 02, and 03. So Cliff knew
blast from the
past version of me. Yeah. So I knew Cliff and I kept in touch with Cliff. Cliff wrote some percussion ensemble stuff for my high school, for Midwest. So I knew Cliff really well and I felt great about that. Jeff Sacktick, who writes the drill, has been for Vandegrift the past 13 years. So there's a lot of comfort, there's a lot of discomfort, but there's also a lot of comfort in knowing that when I got in the room, I would know a lot of people and see a lot of familiar faces. So it felt that felt good. You know what I mean? Knowing that. So
yeah, it's got to make it a little easier to step your foot in the door initially. Familiar faces, people you've worked with in the past, even if not in that setting, just make it a little more. I don't want to say welcoming, but for lack of a better way to say it, welcoming. I don't know. Yeah, makes sense.
And when I went to Bluecoats, I think my first year at Bluecoats was 19, and I knew Tom Rarick really on that battery staff. I remember going to that first camp and just really meeting a whole new group of people. And they were awesome and super welcoming, but that was kind of scary. And I knew that this situation would not quite be that. Because I'm putting together my team of educators, but also that I knew people kind of throughout the drum corps. So yeah, super helpful.
Yep.
So you kind of perfect segue there. You talked about putting together the team. So obviously, a lot of when changes happen, people bring in their team, like people they think are gonna kind of help reinforce their vision. What was that like as far as like reaching out? Did you have like a hot list kind of already in your mind, or did you kind of have to start from scratch?
No, I did. I mean, I realized that this is like my 20th year of teaching drum corps coming up. So it's like I've taught people, I've taught several different drum corps, so I kind of had a list. And so the way I kind of went about it was I knew I had like 3 older people that have been doing the activity for a long time that I wanted to call first. And I kind of had 2 things in my brain when I put it together was 1, I want experience, and I want a staff that's been around the activity for a long time. And then 2, I didn't want to have titles within the caption. I know that might sound weird. And I'm not poking fun at anyone that does this. It's everyone does it their own way. But I see the staff list and it's like 8 different titles for people, and I think that almost kind of creates a competition within the staff, if that makes sense. And I just didn't want that. So when I call people and talk to people, I said I just want people that want to be here for the right reasons. That just want to teach. A lot of our staff honestly have day jobs. Like Peter Rep is actually the Evans Diodario rep.
Nice.
And he's our lead snare tech. Rick Rodriguez, who's on board, teaches at Cedar Ridge High School. Chad Shalo, the battery coordinator, works for Humana Insurance.
That's where I work.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's great.
I got to connect myself with this guy. No, it's we'll talk after we're done recording.
Okay. But anyway, it was like I wanted teachers that I guess this wasn't their livelihood necessarily. Like they were here because they just loved doing drum corps and they loved the activity. So my first 3 calls were Chad Shadler, who was the caption at Music City where I wrote the previous 2 summers, and it was the caption at Gateway for several years when Mike was there, McIntosh. I've done a great job there. He was one of my first calls. Rick Rodriguez, who I worked with the Cavaliers, and I have lunch with once a week, has been kind of a mentor to me, a dear friend. I think he's one of the best educators in Texas, period. I mean, his groups are silly every year. Here's one of my calls, and Eric Willey, who's at North Carolina Greensboro, great percussionist. Those are my 3 like older guys, and then from there I went kind of section by. I hired kind of like a section lead, and then I let them kind of help fill out the staff from there. So that was kind of the process. It was Peter Rep for snares, Nick Worth, who we'll talk about more when we get into the show stuff, and who did a phenomenal job with some of the quad voicings and making that quad line kind of its own unique thing, which I think he's one of the best in the world at doing that. And then Drake Melson for bass drum stuff.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, we'll get into the tech staff, I guess, and like contributions when we start listening and stuff.
I just want to throw something out there that I think is super cool. And again, like you said, no shade at anyone that does it different ways with the titles and everything. But I think it's awesome because it kind of speaks to the approach, and correct me if I'm wrong here, of I want whether you're a snare tech that's on the road for 2 weeks and then you come back finals week because you're filling a 2-week gap or something, or you're someone that's going to be on as like a coordinator type role unofficially. You just wanted everyone to feel like their voice could be heard if they had an idea. Because I know when you get too baked into those hierarchies and everything, you might have someone that's got, and you see this in the corporate world, you see it all over the place. Someone that's got a certain idea might not feel like, oh, I'm not gonna point this out or say anything because it's not my place or whatever. But I really think that's cool that you took that approach of no matter what your role is, if you've got an idea, I want you to feel safe to voice it, and we're all just here trying to achieve the same goal, regardless of where you are in this perceived pecking order or lack thereof?
One, I've done those long enough, and you guys have been around the activity long enough too. I would talk to people when we're not interviewing, but just kind of making phone calls, and it was a turnoff, and it happened a couple times. Someone said, "What is my role going to be, and how much money am I going to make?" And to me, that's the priority. And I'm not saying people have to pay their bills, and I get for some people towards a bigger part of their income than others, and I totally understand that. So people on our staff, like, this is part of their annual salary and how they kind of pay their bills, and but that didn't feel like it was the right reason. You know what I mean? And I think when you do get older staff, like, a lot of these guys have jobs, or have done full-time things. I don't know. I just wanted to be selfless, and I thought that was so important, and I wanted the vibe to be, like you said, like, everyone's got a voice, everyone's welcome, no one's higher than the other person. We're just here trying to do the thing, and staff culture is so important for the group to be good. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not just within the percussion section, but within the full core. Yeah. It's huge. And you look at those guys at Blue Devils and Blue Coats being there, like, that's what I took away from Blue Coats was that team just loves being on the bus together, and that design team loves working together, and you see it in the product. And I think that was a big thing, was like, can they teach, and are they good people, and are they great on the bus to hang out? Do I want to spend a summer with those guys? And we had a blast. I talked to a lot of those guys today. We're working on staffing right now, which 95% are all coming back. I want to do it again. It's got a few people that having kids. Their families are getting bigger. But it was awesome. So, but yeah, that worked for us. Not that it works for everyone, but that worked for us.
Well, one last thing, real quick.
What can I do for the team versus what can the team do for me?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that approach showed in the final product of there was extreme uniformity across that whole ensemble in demeanor, in approach to their instrument, like across the snare line, across the quad line, even quad to snare, bass line. Like, I think that environment succeeded in achieving a consistent product across the board from player to player, section to section. And I think when you encourage that kind of environment, it leads to that more often than not. So it's just super awesome to watch across the summer.
So we enjoyed our time together. It was an awesome summer from that regard. I think it made a difference in how the kids played. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of how they play, before we get into like the playing, which we will, and everybody can skip to this later if they want.
I'll put a timestamp. Yeah.
Did you guys? I'm sure prior to camps and stuff, you've already talked about the culture of the staff, but just the culture of the ensemble execution wise, like what you guys wanted it to look like, what you wanted it to sound like, feel like, visually, musically, kind of what was the philosophy or pedagogy behind the camps, and just, hey, this is our chance to kind of make a label for Crown Percussion 2025. What were those discussions like?
I mean, we met as a staff, obviously once a week, with the kind of the, like I said, the lead snare person, lead tenor person, just kind of make it a smaller group, to have discussions on this. And, it evolved. And I'll be honest with you, like, some things we talked about in the off season changed once we got to move-ins. I think something we did talk about was we wanted to be one of the loudest groups and one of the softest groups at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, we wanted dynamic contrast. When I studied and when I got the job, I immediately went back and studied all the arrangers before me at Crown and tried to pick not what worked, because that's all, that's an opinion, but kind of what seemed to be received well within the community, and what seemed to, this is the really great years of Crown. Whether that was Paul Rinnick writing it, whether that was Lee Bettis writing it, whether that was Hannum writing it, you know what I mean, or Travis or Mike Jackson. What seemed to work and what was the identity that seemed to resonate the most with the activity. So I think that kind of helped steer from an arranging standpoint. But the technique was we wanted a full extension. We knew we had to have projection. Kind of had to be at the top tier of our list because of how loud that horn line is.
Yeah, with that horn line, you pretty much have to.
You have to. And so just being smart about that and that personality. And I thought that the source material we picked, and we'll talk more about the show in a second, was aggressive, which kind of helped us out, kind of also helped carve our identity. But, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the first time we played O Fortuna at move-ins, the close of that first hit, our entire approach had to change because of how loud. I mean, I was in the box with Michael Klesch, and we did it, and we just started giggling. And it was so loud. And the drums, I mean, the sticks are up past our eyeballs, and you couldn't hear a note.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, we have to broaden our range of dynamics even more than we thought we did. So I think the core kind of helped us dictate that, but we wanted to be aggressive. You know, I don't know. You don't get these opportunities very often, so I wanted to take swings. You know what I mean? At times, I wanted to be complimentary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wanted to make sure that the music analysis and even that's watching the show, everything it fits. You know, we're very deliberate. I talked to Cliff today about, you know, having this interview. Actually, I was like, Cliff, anything you want me to say? And he's like, man, we tried to be so deliberate in how we composed and put this all together. But that's the big thing. We just knew projection. We still want to be relaxed. We don't want to be tight. We want the stick to resonate. But we had to make sure we could get through the horn line and make it to the box.
Yeah. Speaking of Cliff, obviously a huge part of the percussion program. I've never actually talked to Cliff, never met Cliff. Maybe we should have just had him come on too as well. But you know,
next time.
Yeah, next time, Cliff, hold us to it, and if you want.
You'd love to, I'm sure.
But yeah, just working with Cliff and like digging in. Was this your all's first time writing together?
It was, and just so you know, Cliff's background. Another reason, again, a level of comfort for me. You know, Cliff was a quad drummer. I don't know if you guys knew that. Cliff marched Madison's quad line, early 90s. And when Cliff wrote at Southwind back in 01, I think he started writing there in 99. I think 03 was his last year. He wrote the battery in the front. He wrote the whole thing. So I knew Cliff, you know, when I wrote for Music City as my writing gig before Crown, I was writing with Tom Rarick, you know, and Tom obviously wrote the front stuff. I did the battery stuff. But there's a level of comfort that I knew that if needed be, Tom could sketch something, or Tom obviously had a deep understanding of a battery vocabulary and how to make all that work front to back. And I knew Cliff would have a similar background. You know what I mean? And Cliff would have that ability as well, which, again, as a battery guy, knowing that he can speak battery and understands that stuff and knows how that works and can sketch if he needs to, or I could sketch. I don't know. We just knew we could speak the same language. Mm-hmm. So it was our first time writing together, but it felt really comfortable really quickly. We have the same sense of humor. Like I consider him a good friend. Like it just, I don't know. It was very, very collaborative, and it was a super smooth process.
Good. And a shout out to music analysis box that you talked about. First on prelims night, third on semis night, and what was it?
I don't know what we were finals, but
third on finals night. But a couple ones in there. 1-1, 1-2, 2-3. Yeah, so
there you go.
No, we're excited. I remember the quarterfinals one because I remember Matt Harloff pulled the whole drum corps in semifinals morning or after rehearsal was done and was like, you know, this whole drum team is new. All these members are new. Like, we give it round of applause for our drum team. We won music analysis. You know,
heck yeah,
that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
It was, that was great. Clutch, and we might get to this later, but the whole Crown team was so welcoming, and you know, Clutch is awesome to work with. So smart. I don't know. It feels very comfortable. We had a great time putting all that together.
Great. Yeah. I mean, we said it before, and I think we'll get into the actual book now, and then we can start talking about like some of your arranging strategies, maybe your starting points, like what you started with or wrote to. But you know, I felt like the team this year, competitively, you always anybody who doesn't win wants to do better, of course. Of course, yeah. You know, just such a huge win for Crown Percussion in 2025, in my opinion. So,
well, and that finals night performance for the core. I mean, I don't know if you get a chance to in the arena or not, or I guess the stadium, not arena. Sorry, wrong season. But like,
we do it all the time too.
Minutes. And it was incredible, you know. And I don't know, the kids felt like rock stars. I say kids, the students, they felt like rock stars, and it's just we all just came off the field feeling like we had a great momentum going into 2026, and it was, we were so proud of it, you know.
Heck yeah.
Speaking of 2026, before we jump in, one last minor question.
All right.
What does retention look like going into next season? Obviously, things come up last minute. People thought they could march, they can't. You know, do you have a lot of age outs? Was it a young group?
Yeah. It depends. Baseline was a little bit older. You know, the vets that we had from 24 that came back, we had 2 vets that came back in the battery. Both were bass drummers. But 4 out of the 5 bass drummers were age outs. The quad, I think we had 2 age outs, and then we had 4. We try to give them some space. I know we just had a pretty intense summer, but from everything I'm getting, I think we're gonna have really strong retention, and I think we already are getting way more interest in terms of like people filling out forms that we had last year. I know I talked to Joe Roach last week, and I think they just opened it within 1 week. I think there were 50 or 60 applicants for battery only.
Nice.
So I they got to show up. I mean, you never know how that's going to go. But I think there'll be a little more depth. We're hoping, but you never know. But we feel good about it.
Yeah, super cool to hear that you've got that many people able to come back. Looking forward to it. All right, let's switch scenes here for everybody else. And all right, everything looks good. We'll jump right in again. Rbase 311, Robert, go subscribe to his channel. Link in the description. Just jump right in. Feel free to tell me to pause it whenever you want to talk about something. We'll just see where it takes us.
Yeah, we could probably fly through. The intro is a pre-show, so it's pretty thin percussively. It's a chorale with the brass, so it's pretty minimal. Just
as far as like music selection, was this always first? Like, hey, we want to start with this, or was something else like selected first, and then we kind of figured out the rest?
No, we always knew this is part of Carmina Burana. We always knew this was going to be kind of a pre-show for us. When we did January camp, we played this through the opening hit. So we always knew if this was going to be in. We actually started to have this part judged later on in the season because we thought we were going to be short on time. But this was kind of a chance for the brass to kind of have a chorale, face backfield, kind of set a calm, beautiful mood. And then, but that juxtaposition of that versus what the battery is going to do here in about 15 seconds is kind of cool and kind of unique, so. I'll stop talking so we can actually listen.
Well, the information is valuable.
Mm-hmm. Always welcome.
These crashes are super exposed. And soft. That's hard.
Speaks to the dynamic range of the ensemble already, showing it off here.
When I'll say this, I'm going to pause it real quick.
Yep.
Something unique about, you can kind of see in the setup that Cliff did that was really kind of unique, was 4 concert bass drums throughout the ensemble, and then actually antiphonal timpani, one being German and one being traditional in terms of the setup. So some different colors, and some of that you're going to hear. I don't know if the video will pick it up because of the angle, but there's a lot of conversational timpani stuff between the two players that's split at times, but kind of gives you this kind of antiphonal, like surround sound idea with the timpani voice, which was, I thought, super cool that Cliff thought of that and put that together.
I love the timpani voicing, and the fact that there's 2 is just sick.
It was cool, and it allowed some different stuff, and there's stuff in the back half of the program where it's like almost a back and forth conversation tipping to the drum line. But it just kind of gave us a different color, which is really cool. But we can keep going.
I know former Carolina timpanist Aaron Spivak loved it.
Those isolated right doubles might be one of my favorite snare moments in the summer.
We'll get stuff here, yeah.
So is that idea something that you've just Joe Hobbs is hacking around on his pad over the years? Like, I feel like snare drummers have their go-tos. Like, oh, I'm just always going to I'm going to make up something for 30 seconds, and here it is. So this inverted grandma idea with the putta left, butta, then inserting the speedo diddle in there.
Fast right double.
That's something you've just this is something I like, or
I wish I could say that I've planned that for years, and it's just not the case. I will say this, so not to go too long-winded on this, but when I took the job, I talked to Cassell a little bit, and Cassella's one of my favorite arrangers of all time. And I remember asking Jim, I was like, man, give me one piece of advice. And every time I've run into an arranger that I have a ton of respect for, I always ask him that question. Whether we're drinking a few beers or I've worked with them, I just want to collect all that expertise. And Jim gave me this, his advice that I loved. It was this past year was, if you're writing something and it kind of makes you giggle, it kind of you have a reaction to it, stay in that headspace, because that means you're reacting. And if you react, that means somebody else might react and also love that.
That's awesome.
And that moment was one of those moments that it kind of happened in. And, there's a 5-note motif. We're about to get to it, but it's tripletized in the Husa in Music of Prague. So the part 2, you're going to hear a lot of that. So we knew we were getting there. So the idea and how we got to that sticking was I wanted to take a 5-note motif but put it in the duple.
Mm.
So I wanted to kind of almost like sneak it in there so that you're almost subliminally thinking these 5-note motifs before we get to the triplet version of it that's actually in prog. So, you could have done a paradiddle, paradiddle tap. That's an option for 5 notes. But I kind of liked when you did the right, left, right, left. It almost kind of gives this dotted quarter note. Gakko, 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 gakko. You know what I mean? With that right hand, which is kind of a cool texture. So that started. If we go backwards and listen to it, you'll hear that passed around between the snares, the quads, and the bass drum. It's all staggered entrances. But then it was like, well, I need to develop this idea. If we're going to have this as a motif, there needs to be development. So that last idea was we just isolate it, digga, and it's like, okay, ornamentation, but the digga, put the ditto on there, and then the one that made me giggle was when I put them consecutive.
Yeah,
so it's just
no space.
5 in a row, but you get out. And it worked out mathematically. And then it actually goes into a 5-note triplet grouping, triplet with a ditto on the 5th note. Boom, jump, digga-digga. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all 5s, and the whole idea is musically trying to get us to da-da-da-da is the idea.
I remember when I saw that one on the Evans Learn the Music, I was like, I like that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What feels good, and I remember Peter Rep drummed it. He saw it, and he's like, dude, I don't know. And then he drummed it a couple times. And actually, once you figure it out, it feels good. And if you try and play that diddle too low, it feels awful. You know what I mean?
You gotta play it up. Yeah.
So if you watch the right hand, it kind of stays up and keep the left hand down, and it makes it a really cool kind of a fun flow to it.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
But creeping out your 5.
You just get this tension build too.
Yep.
And then here's the payoff. Hit brasser in here. Seconds in the pit.
Yeah, it's very narrow. Who did the
I was
soundscaping?
trying to say the soundscape's incredible.
Mike Bishop did.
Okay.
Did awesome.
Hey, we know Mike.
Yeah, and then I thought the last lick turned out really well. It's kind of some 5s to 4s.
Yeah.
With that last one actually being a 5, like a slower 5. It's like triplet. It's in 5-note groupings and 4-note groupings in a triplet form, and then the last was actually a 5-lit. And there's some kind of weird 5-lit. Cliff did a great job. I think I went first on the hit, and then you hear the 5-lits picked up in the front ensemble as well. So Cliff did a great job. Anytime we would pick rhythms a little more complex of figuring out ways to make the pit just seamlessly work into that. I thought he was brilliant with what he did with that stuff.
When you all were working together to write this, big picture question here that just popped into my head. Was it you were getting the front stuff written first? Because typically, in my experience, the front gets written first, but we've also talked to people that say certain sections, the battery was written first for certain parts of the show. Like, was it kind of a give and take a little bit, or?
It's a give and take, at least for us. That's our process. And, for instance, when we got to the battery feature coming out of the corral, Cliff went in and sketched. He didn't do any keyboard parts. It was more like when you wanted impact drums. There's some kind of sample drums as well in there, and he kind of gave me anchor beats and some ideas between those. And then I kind of went in and ornamented that, did my bass drum voicing, my quad voicing. But then when the brass came in, I think I went first on that because I'm writing to the brass part.
Right.
And Cliff came in and then put on top of the pit stuff on top of the battery stuff. And I think he likes letting me maybe sometimes go rhythmically first on some of that stuff so we can kind of figure out how he's going to work inside that.
Gotcha.
But there are also times I'll write and I'm like, Joe, I hear a 16-note run here. Can you give me 4 bars of duple? And there's a moment in the end of part 2 that's how it was. It's like, I need duple. Can you take a step back and let the pitch shine here? It's like 100%.
Yeah.
But it just depends on the moment. Depends on, what the source material is, what the mood is. Usually Klesh, I always say this, Klesh always went first. You know what I mean? It would kind of send us the brass part and then have some outlines of maybe what the front ensemble material would be if it's a battery moment or a percussion moment. But it usually go Klesh, and depending on the mood, or not the mood, but the movement, Mio Clip. We always negotiated.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of, even with my situation in high school stuff, the guy who's doing the wind brass will he noodles around on a piano part. And he's like, this is kind of what I envisioned for the the front ensemble, or like we'll put in some sort of like ostinato. It's like, I kind of feel like the battery maybe feels like this, but then like, obviously take it and run with it. But every group's different, so that's cool to hear.
I like that. When I wrote for Music City, CJ Barrow would do sketches, and he's a percussionist. He did the soundscape stuff, and he'd have things. It kind of helped me know holistically what the mood was, what we were trying to do. Clutch doesn't do battery parts, but it'll definitely put piano cues. And I like that stuff. You know what I mean? And sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when the vision becomes more singular, and you have one person kind of dictating, I think it makes the vision clearer sometimes. And I know everyone wants to have a voice, but the more voices you have going, I think sometimes the more diluted or more just too much stuff gets in there. And it's kind of hard to dilute's the wrong word. Too much stuff gets in there. It's kind of hard to decipher what's the hierarchy musically.
Yeah, right. And when you allow that give and take, it leads to, and my motivation for asking that question is because the interplay, but throughout the ensemble, battery to front to different parts of the front to back to the battery, was so intricate at times. I had a hunch it was probably very conversational between you guys when you all were give and taking of like, hey, I need this here, you need that there, feedback here and there. That organic approach just leads to those awesome little Easter egg things that not every listener is going to pick up on, the super intricate back and forth, just the communication and stuff. So that's really cool. The organic approach just seems to be, from my experience doing this podcast, like, to me, seems like the right way if you want to ascribe a right way. But again, many ways to skin the cat in this activity.
I think it goes back to Cliff's battery background on some of that stuff too. Like I think that's so helpful. He could pick up a 5 and kind of know, that's a 5. I need to group it this way. Mm-hmm. This is going to read better. So I give my hats off to Cliff on all that stuff as well. Like if I went first, I thought he was just so good at adopting those rhythms and making them make sense for the front ensemble. And his colors, I don't know if I'm just bragging on Cliff the whole time, but I just really, I had a ton of respect for him, love working with him. But then the colors he got, all the crotales you're going to see in the front ensemble, the typical bass drum stuff, the bell, like there's just so many colors in there. I don't know. I think, I love what he did. And I loved, again, he did a lot of that legwork. I guess what I'm trying to say is he did a lot of the legwork on making all that work if I went first,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So. Cool.
The front ensemble arranging always blows my mind just because
mind-blowing.
There's so many options.
So many options of what to do.
There's so many options. Like, it's just in battery land, it's like we have this instrument, we have these drums, we can change rudiments. Our implement. We can like do some like presses or some stick shot timbre changes, some cross stick, but like, you start getting into mallet choice and then like just
all the auxiliary percussion stuff and
is how to make it sound unique, even though we all have the same instrumentation, and how do you make your group, and make that organically happen too. I think this is writing. It's like they're trying really hard to sound different. So serving the music, but also having a unique voice. Man, it's a lot of hats, and it stresses me out. Just put it that way.
All right, let's keep going. We'll
let's
get
jump back in.
Yeah.
Sit there.
And no keep earlier.
The Spock roll, rug pull into the vibes.
Dude, did he just roll on the timpani with the back of the sticks?
I don't know. It might have, yeah.
Go back, real quick.
Evan
I'm pretty sure he did like it. It looked like almost like a concert snare roll, which is obviously not how you would normally.
You can
roll
look at his hands right now. Are those? Yeah, the
You
mallets are under his palms.
I think he has the sticks flipped. Yeah, he's doing it at the back. Yeah.
Back up a little more. There we go. Yep.
Creative.
Yep.
What interesting dialogue back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's pause it on that one if you don't mind.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is probably a good one too. I don't know if this is the exact moment. There's another quad moment later, but I know you had posted or Nick had shared.
Oh, that IP video I think maybe just came out talking about it.
Maybe. Yeah. But I know you had posted said something about like, his inspiration or influence over some of the quad rounds or just even quad moments. What was kind of working relationship with that? Like, did you like, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking, take it and run with it, or like, here's a skeleton like of rhythms, like move it around?
Well, this moment, I'll be specific on this because I'm really happy with how this turned out. This actually, Clutch wrote, he didn't write the quad part, but that's a clarinet part for Music for Prague. That's all clarinet. And because of the jumps and the leaps in that, he knew the brass couldn't play it. So when we got that first sketch, it was like this. I was like, man, this is actually rhythmically super interesting and might be a quad feature. So I wrote it. So this is before Cliff got it. I wrote it. I was like, man, I think this is a cool quad thing. And added ornamentation, obviously some flams, some diddles. Like there's ornamentation for sure. It's not the exact clarinet part, but it started there. That actually the bass drum come out of that. There's a trill on the clarinet. That's a hand to hand. You know what I mean? Nice. It comes out of piano. So it's all magically the content that we had or the source material like worked out clarinet part from bass drum to quads, and then Cliff went and orchestrated that all through that. But that quad break is a clarinet part originally, and I sketched the rhythms I wanted and kind of the voicing a little bit. You know what I mean? Like high to low, because I wanted to kind of again melodic. I wanted to make it melodic. You know what I mean? But still have some vocabulary. And then Nick kind of worked his magic to do all the crazy rounds. And I remember talking to Scott Johnson. I just gotten the gig. This was at PASIC, and we were doing a clinic together for INE. And I remember I asked him, I was like, man, how collaborative are you guys as a staff when it comes to the writing, especially tenor rounds, bass drum voicing, snare vocabulary, that kind of stuff. And he's like, man, we're super collaborative. We talk about it. I think Rudy has a huge hand in that quad stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, Nick's, again, one of my favorite quad drummers of all time. If you haven't seen his INE stuff from like the early 2000s.
I have, yeah. There's so one where he's like, I swear it's like at a high school underneath like an awning or something. There's like concrete and.
Yeah, and it's so fresh and smart and clever and melodic, and it's just so. I mean, so I would typically always write it around. I never wanted to not give him an idea of what it should be. But then once the rhythm was there and my kind of general skeleton of the round was put together, I would kind of let Nick go in there and kind of sculpt it as he needed to. And sometimes like, can I change this rhythm or change this accent? It's like, Nick, whatever feels great. So he had a huge hand in sculpting kind of the rounds and how this works. But this moment, I was just so happy with how it turned out, especially the genesis of the clarinet part, into
That's
what
really
it is.
Cool to hear that it was clarinets. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Voiced by a drumline. Clarinet to drumline.
I'll have to use that for my wife. See, clarinets can be drums because she plays clarinet.
Trill on the bass.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And here, just keeping time. There's some brass, complicated rhythms. Want to be a good backbeat form.
Big intervals.
Some flambeau cab. Fast parody duels coming up.
Day crescendo on the bass drum. Yep.
Single drum roll that always works well.
Down.
Love that.
The dialogue front to back was sick there in that phrase.
That's a 9-lit. Not that ever read. Could have lost it. A lot of fives in here.
Yep.
Here's the better 8th note for the 16th note.
Oh, the build into the vocals just is so satisfying.
The electric guitar sound.
Yeah,
one of the hardest things and most impressive things to me from an arranging standpoint is when arrangers find a way to maintain and pace a build of a phrase across a long period of time. That whole thing just spoke to me of just like starting here, paced perfectly into the climax of like the vocal sample and everything at the end of it, and just the density of notes increased as you went through it, and just such a well written, well thought out phrase. It's just satisfying as hell as an audience member.
Thanks. Well, there were events and there were checkpoints to lock in.
Right.
You know, all those 5-foot rolls. That was a big brass impact. A lot of half notes. So I think that 5-foot roll motif always works well, I think, under half notes. You know, and then after that, I kind of said in the recorder as we're going through it, like Cliff wanted a long 16th note thing, so we went very da 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 dum da dum da 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 you know what I mean? Like very something to listen to. It's still driving. We had to have a driving moment, but not being too complex rhythmically so the front ensemble can shine. You know, and then we double the rhythm and then more open rhythms to make it louder with the DSA array on top, and then some kind of over the bar line dotted 8th note things that kind of have some complexity. You know what I mean? You kind of make you wonder where one is, you know, to finish the phrase for us. But yeah, all that worked. And Clutch writes long phrases.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like it's long sustains. And I think our job sometimes as the arrangers is to kind of help create motion underneath that.
Mm-hmm.
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
the pacing.
Keep
like
momentum.
Those things that like drive it, but then break it up in the middle there. Like you were talking about, like some of those like more odd rhythms that kind of go over the bar line. Like, all right, we're chugging. Like, all right, now it's, you know,
you have to get creative to avoid monotony.
Freshen it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you want it to, you don't want the audience to be too comfortable all the time. You know, you want some things that are a little bit like, what was that? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, how did I get to beat 1? You know what I mean? Like just some magic tricks in there if you can to keep it unique and fresh.
Yep.
Were there other points throughout the show too where you allowed, like you were talking about Nick and his influence over the quad rounds, like some of the other snare staff, bass staff, whatever, front ensemble, like even with Cliff, like, hey, I think maybe like if we did this, like change.
Oh, totally. I think about to get to part 3. There's a really fast. It's not a hand to hand. I think everybody called it a hand to hand. But that was Drake Nelson's like, hey, what if we tried this version of a hand to hand? And it's still that 6-tuplet rhythm, but it's 1 2 3 2 1. So bass 2 is more or less playing a hand to hand skill set. But what would normally go to the single drum on 1 is actually between 1 and 3.
Okay.
It's never like that I would never. I mean, I could experiment with that and try to figure it out, but like that kind of stuff is so helpful as an arranger when you have something that's so specified in like their instrument, whether it's bass drums or tenors or snares. They say this is the skill set I want to try, and we put it in there. So yeah, Drake was super helpful with some of that stuff and some of the voicing, or making things maybe be a little bit easier to play, that kind of stuff. And some of the snare staff too, like in the snare break, there's some extra zone things that got added. Mark Hunter came up with that. There's actually the split rim thing that was in this past movement. Callie Rydell kind of put that in and helped out with that. So it was, anybody that brought something to the table that was unique and fresh, I don't know. I think too many smart people in this activity to have one person just doing it.
Yeah. And very like specialists in these things. Like that's,
it's hard to know everything.
Like, you talk about like asking other arrangers and other designers, Jim Casella, Scott Johnson, like, how do you do this? How do you do this? Like percussion and music in general just has so many styles. Like you can't be an expert in everything. So yeah,
it's okay to feel that way and know that now someone does have to bang the gavel on parts at some point and say,
someone's got to make a decision eventually. But
Again, I have an older staff that's been doing this a long time, and I think it'd be, I don't know, pretty egotistical of me to just shut it all down and say, no, I've got this figured out. Because I don't have it figured out, and I probably never will. But I think there's an excitement to that, and collaborating.
It's so funny to me that I was actually talking to my boss earlier about that idea of like, no matter how far you get career-wise in whatever avenue you're in, everyone is feeling like they're faking it till they make it almost, because you're always learning and you're always like acknowledging, oh, there's still so much that I don't know, even if you've been doing it for 30 years. Hopefully, in an ideal state, yeah.
No, 100%. And it made me feel better. I remember talking to Tom Rarick when I was at Music City. I was like, man, this is scary. And he's like, Joe, it never goes away. And I'm like, great. And I have so much respect for Tom as an arranger.
Yeah.
And to hear him say that was like, okay. And I remember talking to Casella, not to go back to this, I almost took an arranging job back in 2019. At another drum corps, I won't talk about it. I remember asking him, because I had written a bunch, and I was like, man, I just don't feel like I'm formed as a writer. And he's like, I was like, what did you do? He's like, man, when I first started writing, I just tried to be Ralph. And I was just, what would Ralph write? Hardiment. And I was like, wait a second. Jim, to me, was just one of the legends, still is, one of the legends of composition. And to hear him openly say like I was just trying to be this other thing. And he's like, but after a year or two, like I got my own voice.
Right.
Like that led me to what I wanted to be. But just to hear him like be honest, like I wasn't fully formed, like none of us are. It made it feel more approachable, and it was like, man, that meant a lot to me to hear that.
Sometimes you just have to start doing it, and you'll figure it out as you go.
Well, and I don't know if anybody else will admit this. I will to you guys, but like there are moments like every phrase in here I could probably state an influence. Of like I heard this, and maybe I borrowed from, not borrow, but like I remember this drum line played this 10 years ago, this kind of phrase, and I could borrow from that. Like there's influences all the way through, and there's moments of Tom, writing with him, and there's moments of of Jim. There's moments of Brett Kuhn, and I think we all at some point we receive all this music, and it gets inside of us, and it comes out hopefully in our own voice. But I think we're all borrowing from each other and creating, I don't know, trying to create our own voice.
It's all tribal knowledge. We all grew up on something. We learned from everything we played growing up, different teachers, different arrangers, things we liked and watched, and it's all an amalgamation.
100%. So.
All right, here we go.
Let's.
Going into Carmina Burana and the music rock.
I think Mike Bishop nailed this. Dude, this is great.
Mike did an awesome job. Awesome job by Mike. Great dude, great to work with.
A lot of really like classical music though. Just well known. I know it's probably maybe not some of the like more well known Carmina parts, but
and that was the goal. We want the less known movement. Retardando coming up with stuff.
Just big open rhythms and that slowing down at the same time. So hard.
Dude, Flesh loves his retardandos.
I was going to say, did you play some of those when you marched? Yeah.
Yeah.
With a smug look on his face. Yep.
Spent hours doing hours. It's like, no, it's not slow enough. I'm like, all right.
Okay.
Well, and pause it. That was a challenge. Yeah. And that's something I definitely studied, how Mike Jackson handled those, how Lee Bettis handled those, how Tom Hannum handled those. You know what I mean? Like, and I thought Tom typically did it with more open rhythms, Hannum, that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought that worked really well. And there were times that actually there were impacts, like studying that writing, where he would actually, like on big open impacts, would step out for 6 counts or 8 counts and then come back in. And that always seemed to work and was so complimentary. So, there were definitely things I borrowed from that and his arrangement process, working with Clash. And those guys like lived on the same street. I think you guys knew that at one point. I did not know that.
Nope.
They would, Clutch told me like the Clutch, they would come down because Hannum would store like handwriting scores, and I think maybe Clutch was too, and they'd have their handwritten scores. They'd come to each other's houses and just go through everything and like mark it up. And so I knew that, not that Clutch would say who his favorite arranger was, and I would never ask him that, but I know that they had a special bond.
Yeah.
And I know that they had lots of discussions. So I know when we went into the arranging process for the battery, I knew if I studied some of Tom's stuff and how he handled some like retardandos and things like that, I know that would probably speak to maybe what Clutch's, ear goes towards, if that makes sense, or what make him comfortable.
No, I remember because we did 2010, we did Mahler's Symphony No. 2. And it was just all like, joom, 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 joom. And it was like, no, we got to get slower. And I'm like, all right. Because I was in the middle, and I was just like, all right, we're going to slow down. It's me and the conductor, me and the drum major. We're just like, all right, we'll slow this thing down. Here we go.
And you never get credit for that. And I'm not making this I feel like on judges' tapes, they call the tick, but it's like, you have any, and they got to know how hard that is.
It's so hard.
9 snares, 5 quads, 5 bass drums, like to make that sound.
And then they told us from the box, they're like, hey, you guys can't dut. And we're like, what? So it all became grunts. We're like, dude, like we couldn't dut through the whole thing. And I was like, all right, come on now.
Do you want us to play this clean or not? Pick your poison here, folks.
The answer was yes, but also do it how we want to.
Yes to both.
So
we keep going. Let me know if I'm talking too much too.
No.
I feel like this.
This is
it's great.
this
It's
is
great.
great. This is why we do these things. This has been awesome.
And this is all underneath the baritone soloist.
We did get 2-2 in music analysis on semis and finals, so all right, we did it right.
Okay.
2010.
Yeah, you did.
I had to go back and look. So
Moment for us here, percussion-wise, little feature. We'll listen and talk about it.
Great drop down.
Rondo.
Oh, what's going on in the bass line right there?
Well, that's the
craziness.
moment. Yeah, if you want to pause it.
Was that
That's
the
what I'm
1 2
talking
3 3 1 2 3
That's
2
the
1?
1, 2, 3, 2, 1.
I thought I heard that there. I was like, it's funny you pointed that out. I was like, I think that's what
Yeah.
that is.
And that was a window. We knew, the bass drum guys were funny, especially the vets were like, kept bugging me like, where's our bass solo? Where's our bass solo? And I think I maybe feel about bass solo. Maybe bass solos maybe how Tom Merrick feels about snare solos. We always joke about it. It's like I hate writing them. I don't like snare breaks. You know what I mean? Like I want to figure out how it all works. But I try to use that window. Like they get windows for me. And maybe next year we'll write a bass break. We probably will. You know what I mean? But I just always want it to feel musical. And I want it to, I don't know, I want it to be intentional. I don't want us to have a bass break because it's a bass break. Like,
Yeah.
what is the music all for? So we try to put windows in there, and it's all open rhythms in there per battery. And the bass drums have fast fours. I think we're at 200 at that point. And there wasn't a chill. I think one of you guys caught it. There isn't a chill all the way through that phrase. And then the idea, too, is I wanted that extreme loud, that extreme soft. We were talking earlier about, what we were trying to, an identity. And I wanted, like, a fortissimo bar immediately into a pianissimo bar and trying to have dynamic range and contrast within this phrase. And it is classical. So the rhythmic choices were very, very duple, very square, like that kind of an idea. So I didn't want to venture too far away from the classical idea. I wanted to be recognizable, and I wanted to belong to the Carmina Burana music. So trying to be clever in how we did that. But that was that moment, and again, that bass drum moment I thought worked out really well for us.
We're going to back up because it's really cool.
Triplets or was it a 9-lit?
It's 6-tuplet, but it's at 200, so it's like
Fast as hell.
It's burning, yeah.
So basically, like 1 and 3 are playing like eighth notes, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then 2's just in the middle.
Well, it's a first and third partial.
Or it's
Yeah, it's the first and third partial.
Back up. It's triplets. Back up, and 2's just in between.
In the between, yeah, the hand in hand.
Okay.
It's interesting. That's a
Triple,
unique
triple.
idea.
Yeah.
We'll text Drake later and say good job.
Way to go, Drake.
Give him like 8 thumbs ups in the group chat.
You would love that. You would love that.
I'll send him a screenshot right now.
Such a cool sound.
And then to just finish that.
And then texture stuff here.
Dude, such good stick controls. I'm going to point this out as a snare head. Such good stick controls training for the snare line, at least in that moment. You all played so well at the edge or gut edge of those snare drums. And it just speaks so well to the technical training that happened and the fundamental foundation like established in the members. I'm just like a super blinder snare drummer at heart. So like I appreciate that to my core when I see stuff like that because I don't know.
Well, you know how hard that stuff is, and I think he gets taken for granted, like playing da da da, but da go, but da da da. I mean, that space is hard. Those attacks are hard, and to not be too light, to be intentional with placing each one of those notes. And which about inspirations? Like to me, I hear that quarter note bass line underneath is kind of Jim Caselli used to do that a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And all that textual stuff reminds me of Tom Hannum stuff, like 93 Star, all that texture, and just kind of combining that. So just, being supportive. It's all, Tubas started this phrase. It's all underneath the brass here. So we're trying to be super supportive and trying to create that boom chick idea as well. The front picks up, Cliff does. Just that dial, but being underneath supportive and trying to have some color,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I know we're highlighting Crown, but you've mentioned his name a few times. If anyone out there is listening to this and you haven't gone back and watched the Jim Casella like on the waterfront walkthroughs on YouTube, definitely go do this after this video.
I'm such a fan. I don't know.
I love Jim Casella's arranging. Yeah,
I still watch. I'm sure you're the same way. I know you guys
1999 is probably one of my favorites.
They're so good. I just watch so many videos of stuff, and like I still love, and even like current videos too. There's so much talent out there, and Anyway, let's keep going.
Soak it in.
All the parallel stuff out there.
Video change there.
Yep. Dude, they're all the way up there in the register. As high as you can get.
Oof. Again, another window for the bass line there. More sound sample stuff by Bishop, just incredible.
Shirley Murphy's.
I feel like that rudiment's coming back in style, by the way, the past couple of years. The Shirley
I think
Murphy.
that device works. When you have a cordon triplet in the brass, it just feels good. It fills up the sound. I just like writing it. They're kind of hard to clean. I think, I think fast threes, the left hand especially, not clipping that third note.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it works. It's a great device. Yeah.
Make Shirley Murphy's great again and make Egg Beaters great again. I will die on this hill.
Egg Beaters.
I thought Vanguard had some Egg Beaters this summer. I saw a couple.
That rudiment's coming back in a big way too. Egg Beaters and deviled eggs.
Dude, I remember when we reached this point in the reaction video, we talked about just how stark of a contrast this must have been for the front ensemble from what they were doing to just this open fidelity
communicative
moment
across
and being
the
able
ensemble.
To just,
And there was
slow your body down.
There was a concern from a pacing standpoint. We kind of hit you in the face from moves 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
And did we wait too long to bring in this breath? And I think it worked out, but we knew we had to have this something so drastic because of how intense the first 2 movements of the show are.
Yeah, because we're like over halfway through the show, and
we're almost 9 minutes into this video, so 2/3 of the way through at least.
Down the moment. I mean, everything else has been pretty driving.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of content for the battery, especially to play through.
So much breath.
That attack
Dude,
is so hard. That attack is so hard.
Yeah, so much rubato in this, and as we talked about earlier, clutch. There's no 2 beats at the same tempo pretty much this entire movement. It's remarkable what those guys did. Rivers.
Shifting between the inner mallets and then the laterals. And
this split part is crazy.
And there's metal stuff too coming out. These just not glisses. Ornamentation is just so well done.
Those little flourishes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like little 3. Oh,
the marimba lead into the vibe accents, the phrase.
The timpani voicing is
Dueling timpanis.
Yeah, the Critalis are doubled on some of this too with bells on different instruments.
And the juxtaposition of what you all just played leading into this and the stark transition is just awesome.
Another rubato.
Yep.
Oof. Just full on to chill. Yeah.
Big timpani moment coming up, doubled.
Man, such communication.
Yeah, I wish you could see they're both playing and how hard that was to line up. They were awesome this summer.
Oh, is this temple block part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yes.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, when we come back after the break, yeah.
Evan's laughing because he
Don't
knows.
do this to me, Mike.
I'm doing it. Great layer in by the snares and basses to the end of the quad phrase, the roll. Accents in the front.
Oh, that's a fun rhythm.
We have pause there, probably.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that was all the Devil Staircase stuff.
Yeah.
Talking through that, like some textures in the snare stuff. Cliff wrote that, which might be the order how he wrote. Cliff sketched the keyboard stuff and a lot of that, and that one split at the end, which took 9 versions of to figure it out. We kind of discovered if you just did like a 3 down the drum, it sounds real thin and it's hard to read. So if you actually watch it, they're keeping an 8th note tap on the edge, and then it's actually a right, right, left, left. You know what I mean? It's one of those guys that kind of it felt fuller. It didn't feel like it had a thinness to it. And then that quad moment, yeah, when you guys mentioned the IP video just came out, but like alternating flaps on the Spock with the back part of the Rennick, and then kind of layering it because it's doubling tubas who are actually staged behind the quad. So we kind of had to blend that and then kind of make that a long progression in terms of how we developed that phrase from an implement standpoint and try to create intrigue there. And then dialogue, brass is playing on top of all that back half of this movement. It's all brass in there too. So trying to create motion, still kind of have some vocabulary and build us into that 0-4 tuna hit was our goal.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about the snare line splits at the end of the video. So stay tuned, everybody, if you're still listening.
I'm nervous.
We're going to discuss that.
No, I'm nervous about it. Fernando, here we go. Another one.
So many.
The push and pull is nuts.
Solid tempo.
And you can't program those in tonal energy the way Michael Kletch wants them.
No, yeah.
He's like, more dramatic.
Literally just...
Now just running and gunning.
Yeah.
East Coast drum corps right here.
I heard...
Timpani back and forth.
Snare to quad there, back and forth communication. What was that? Was that just like a 4? Right, left, left.
Yeah.
That was. I asked that because my snare drum brain, again, it's not like an isolated tap 5 with an 8th note space between them. Was it just like an open 4 or 5 or?
It's a 9-lit grouping with 4, and it's a right, left. Beato, it's playing Gaku.
Gotcha.
Left hand. We called that the Wayne's Worlds. We kind of had names for all these. I remember Wayne's World when they did the dream sequence. They go Beato. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah.
The kids.
I know the reference exactly.
Dude,
that's freaking perfect.
The members were like, "What are
that.
you talking about?"
Oh, I'm sure they were.
I literally just typed in my notes. I wrote comedy movies, race to the end, because I had a point to make. But
we named stuff, like the part 1, that right, left drag.
Yep.
Those are called the Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
And we do that. It's kind of fun. So each year feels different, but also like when you're in the box and you're running rehearsal, it's instead of me trying to sing the rhythm, or like I could just say Wayne's Worlds, or I could say the Bulldogs. There's 2 8th notes in that last retardando we called the Jimmy John's 8th notes.
The Jimmy John's 8th notes. That's this is the inside baseball stuff that we live for, folks. This is what we want to hear.
But it makes it fun, and the membership,
yeah.
they know the moments, and so it's like trying to find little moments like that. But yeah,
Did you make them watch Wayne's World on the bus one night going to the next housing site?
Funny enough, I tried to get on YouTube, it was in Move-Ins, and try and find like a clip of them doing that sequence, and I couldn't find one.
Just get someone to find the streaming
DVD,
service.
Like here.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Throw it on the bus when you all leave spring training.
Funny at all. I don't think it's probably aged very well at all. Yes.
But anyway, digress. You were talking about
Yes.
like like going all into the end. I like watching movies and cinema and watching movie breakdowns and watching what's the director of Dune? Denis Villeneuve, whatever.
Villanueva? No,
Yeah.
that
Yes.
one. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay.
Something like
All
that.
right.
Villeneuve, but breakdown scenes and stuff. But all these people who do movies and talk about it, they say like, race to the end, don't overstay your welcome. And I feel like that's appropriate in the marching world too. Like, could you make a show 20 minutes long? Sure. But like sometimes you just gotta race to the end, don't overstay your welcome, leave people wanting more, not leave them being like, that went on too long. I think that's a valuable skill in the marching arts world. When I watch those movie breakdowns or anything, I'm just like, yeah, just if people want more of what we're doing, great.
Yeah.
They'll come back next year.
You watch that drill-wise, and this is obviously not what the new ending we did. We put the new ending on for Allentown, which kind of elongated some of this. And they called, when they have that big duper roll that goes to singles, doubles to singles, that was called the Green Mile. If you watch them in the drill, they start from like the 25, 30-yard line, all the way across the field, crabbing at like 192. Then they crab all the way back across in the new ending. We call that the Blue Mile.
That's where you look at the drill writer and go, "What? Why? Why are you doing this to me at the end of the show? Why?"
Because it's Crown.
But you know what? Which about identity, and it dawned on me a little bit, and we kind of embraced it, and I kind of love it now.
You have to. Yeah.
Physical, and the core is aggressive volume-wise. Like, whether Jeff realizes he's doing it or not, he probably does because he's brilliant.
Yep.
But he's creating an identity for us, which is we move and play. We have to be aggressive because of how hard the drill is and how loud the horn line is. Like, the other factors around the drum corps kind of helped us shape who we are, and I think it made it fun. And that's we move and play, and we did get a lot of credit for that towards the end of the season. Beginning of the year, not so much, but I think at some point every judge was like, "I can't believe how much these guys are moving." And you hear the tapes, and the judges like huffing and puffing.
The judge is winded by the end of it.
100%. You're like,
and they can't even go on the field anymore.
100%. Yeah, they're just walking the front sideline. But yeah, we loved, like I said, the physicality of it was such a cool aspect of the program this year. And so that we kind of had to, and it took a lot of work. I mean, there's no shortcut to conditioning, and there's no shortcut to doing that drill. You just got to do it and kind of build some muscle and build some endurance.
Yep.
But the membership was awesome with that.
Yeah.
Not to put any ideas in Crown 2026's head, but I remember in 2010 we got so annoyed with running that we convinced the percussion staff that we would play better if we just did PT and core training rather than running with the brass. And they were like, "Okay, we'll see."
We didn't run, but we did kind of have a policy, where we would do a run through. If it was not a show day, we always did a percussion ensemble run through on the move.
Well, no, I'm talking about like running at
spring training, like PT in the morning.
We wouldn't run.
We just Is that weird that we didn't run and do that?
I never understood.
Maybe we set a standard that all Crown drumlines live by, but we stopped running in 2010. We're like, can we just not run and do like some planks and stuff? And they're like,
the reality is the drumline doesn't need the lung capacity the horn line does, and you're going to get the endurance as a drumline member from rehearsing every day, day in and day out, and marching basics. Like we can breathe whenever we want. There's no restrictions, and we don't have to like have this. Oh yeah, that's a whole different tangent. But
yeah, whatever. Anyway.
We was at Gardner Webb when you marched.
Yes.
So I mean that place is so hot. I will say this, like it's a brutal move-ins, but when we come out, man, the membership is just tough as nails. They have to be because it's just such a brutal environment in South Carolina. I think is it North Carolina, South Carolina? It's right on the border.
It's North Carolina, but it rained so much in 2009 that I swear we learned the whole show, like 75% of it in the rain. In like,
with how hard that drill was, good Lord.
We would go to the gas station just to get like, we would buy stuff just to get the plastic bags, and we would like put the plastic bags over our socks and then put them in our shoes just so we could like, we'd have wet shoes, but we wouldn't have wet socks.
Dude, socks on bag and shoe means blisters to me. You guys are psychopaths. No. That sounds terrible.
I went through 3 pairs of shoes that summer in 2009, but anyway.
I believe that. All right. I think the video's over. I'm going to hit play one more time to make sure it is.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They're
all
just
right, back to
mean mugging with the aviators.
Yeah, there we go. All right, I have to ask really quickly.
Oh no.
Where did the fad come of the past couple years of having the split down the snare line? That was like not a thing. And like every single group does it now at some point in their show. And I'm just like, why? Why are we doing this?
100% transparent. I didn't want to write it.
Okay.
I because it does seem like it's not a compulsory, but like it happens so often. But Cliff wrote that split, and it's between the marimbas. So he dictated that vocabulary. I was like, man, I tried some roll stuff.
Just didn't work.
And it just didn't mirror the same way that split would work. And we actually, like I said, did stuff down the drums. We did some A/B, and that one seemed to work the version we did with kind of like what's that staggered roll.
Mm-hmm.
But it just nothing quite matched it the same way the voicing.
Gotcha.
Versus what we did on the split. So trust me, snare splits are not my favorite thing. I don't. If I can avoid it, we'll avoid writing one in 2026.
I hate them.
But
Evan viscerally hates them.
So well,
like it boils his blood.
So I'm sorry, and mine too. I taught.
Yeah.
If you knew my background, I taught 2018 Cavaliers and 17 that had a ton of splits. Like it was so much, and it was cool at that point. I'm not knocking that, but I was like, it's not my favorite thing to clean. I'll put it that way.
Fair.
Well, I hate them, and I feel like there are two valid reasons. Number one is you are relying on so many variables to go right.
Too many points of inconsistency.
The tuning to be perfect on the top head, bottom head. Each pair of snare members to have sticks that are weighted pretty accurately. Their hands to hit the drum the same way. And then, like, the second one is just, I don't think that if you play it rhythmically perfectly, it'll ever sound good. But anyway.
It's hard to make it bad. To defend it, a music analysis judge typically who is not a percussionist sees that, and there's a visual aspect to that does impact people and make them say that looks different and sounds different. I'm not saying that's
individual responsibility.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we write to the judges, but listening to enough music analysis tapes when they don't have it sounds wrong, not a deeper understanding, but they're not necessarily a percussion background with what they're doing. That does have a flair to it that makes it seem unique.
Yeah. Gotcha.
That's
the other side.
That's fair. That is fair. I'll give you that.
And I will always say, that is my opinion.
Everyone's entitled to it.
And they're super hard. And I talked about Cavaliers.
They're hard for sure. It's very hard.
It is hard.
That stuff was super cool. Mike did an awesome job with that book, but I remember just how hard it was to clean that stuff. And I don't know if we ever got full credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like how hard that stuff was doing. I think it was more, that's where more came from, was like, this is real, like you were talking about, so hard to make it sound good.
Yeah.
Do you ever get full credit? And again, as I wrote, I was like, man, I don't want to write this, but
is it worth it? Is the question you have to ask yourself.
It just fits so well, and it was like, yeah, I got to do it.
Yep.
You know.
Fair enough. We're just two idiots on the internet with opinions. You know, it is what it is. You guys are the ones in the trenches. So,
to kind of cap this off, we talked about it a little bit on the front end, but Carolina Crown 2026. Carolina Crown. That's the rye talking now. Carolina Crown 2026.
How much bourbon are we on?
This is the good part of the podcast.
Yeah.
Dude, we don't quantify the bourbon intake. But anyway, you guys are starting off. Are you doing satellite camps? Are you doing in-person camps? Red carpet? Pitch it.
No, it's the same process. We'll be at PASIC. That's our plan. We did this last year as well. Someone that's at PASIC and wants to do like a quick screening or dip in, get some feedback on the technique. We'll be there for that. We've got a camp in November. We got a camp in December. And then we typically set the line in January. We also offer a video audition. So if you can't make those auditions, it's really meant for people that can't make the in-person ones. But we also don't want to limit people that, we had some Japanese students, come in that were fantastic. So we want to make sure we keep that door open. And honestly, if anybody's interested in just trying to fill things out, I've had people reach out already. Find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, Hobbs Percussion, and shoot me a message. We want to keep the door open. We want as many people in that room as possible. You know what I mean? And we want to, it's exciting. And we feel like we have a great momentum going to 26. Like I said, I've been talking to staff all week to make sure, who can come back. And the staff's been pretty much almost the exact same.
That's awesome.
The design teams, a few minor things I can't talk about, but 95% of that's going to be exactly the same. And we're just super, super excited about the momentum. We just felt great about the last year. And I don't know. We're excited to try and get even better next year.
There it is.
Go try out. If you're a student or, anywhere, go audition. That is the biggest leap you can take. Mike and I have talked on this several times. Like, I got cut so many places before I ever made it.
Yep.
Just go get the experience. You'll know what auditioning looks like. Be prepared. Crown 2009 was the first drum corps I ever marched.
Just jump in the pool.
You just got to go for it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, I know people, it's expensive to get out there sometimes. Again, reach out to us. We'll work with you. We'll talk you through stuff. We'll get you feedback. We want it to be, again, an open door policy as many people as possible can to come out. And I don't know. I talked to IP guys last week, and I think Nicholas was like, I've never seen someone so excited the week after finals. I really
That's great.
We were so excited about it. We're not fried. We're ready to get right back to it. And we're ready to go.
All right. I can't think of a better thing to close this on. So, Joe, this has been phenomenal, just like the first time was, however many years ago that was. Hopefully we'll do it again after next summer and see you around the activity and things in the winter or the summer again. And comment, like, subscribe, everybody. Share the video, Robert's video, RBase311. Subscribe to his channel, like his video. If you don't want to hear us blab throughout it, go watch the one without us. If you would like. And then, links to support us as the podcast and channel in the video description. And we'll see everybody in the next video.
Peace.